Hello and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Chris.
And the first question I want to ask is, Chris, how are you holding up?
That's not an actual response. I am doing okay. I'm not really on my best right now, but I'm,
You're doing all right.
I seem to be surviving. How are you holding up?
Hey man, those little victories.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit nervous. I'm doing well, but I go to a big event called Wasteland Weekend where it's post-apocalyptic, and it's coming up in about a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of fake weapons
that
get carried around. I've been noticing a trend on the boards discussing what's the security like? Are those fake guns checked?
Mm-hmm.
And especially in lieu of what's been going on. And that was actually a couple of days ago I saw those comments. And then in the last 24 hours, we have now had 2 major shootings.
Yes. So we do want to kind of tread lightly around the subjects just because they are triggering for a lot of people, and we understand that is kind of heavy-handed to discuss in general.
Yeah, but we did want to mention that we are also being affected by them, as all of us in this world should be, and our thoughts are with the victims.
Yeah. We are, of course, hoping that something can be done to make things better, but we are going to just have to keep working at it.
So on this topic, I don't know if you guys have this conversation, but I've had a few people bring it up, sometimes randomly, where they're like, how do any of us go outside anymore, honestly? How do we feel comfortable going to the movie theater or sending our kids to school, going to an event? Because it just seems like the world's gone crazy. And if you have any sort of anxiety or depression, that already hinders that feeling motivation to do anything.
You're already at a disadvantage with mental health in general when you are just trying to get out of bed, let alone go outside or go for, go to a public place. So how do you handle that? We're going to talk about that today.
Yeah. I think we've mentioned this before, because unfortunately this is not the first national tragedy that we've had to deal with while doing our podcast, where we'd said, remember to look for the helpers, which was a wonderful quote by Fred Rogers. But I know that can be really hard in these kinds of times, regardless of political or religious beliefs. I think we can all agree that there's a lot of feeling of impotence and anger and fear.
A lot of the major negative emotions are pretty much running rampant. There's a lot of frustration at a lot of the inaction we are able to kind of face, more or less.
So from me to the world, to all of us who are feeling anything, I want to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry with whatever feelings that you guys are dealing with, whatever pain that any of this is causing. I'm so sorry for the families. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry that this is the kind of world that we're living in.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry.
Yeah. It's something that I have particular difficulty with. When I get into a headspace where I see injustice and I see a lot of things happening that I don't feel I have the power to deal with. And it's something I have to constantly refer to myself as just, you are not omnipotent. You are not omnipresent. Sometimes things will happen that are not in your control to change. But that doesn't mean that little gestures, little steps, little things that you could do can still help. And it all has to start with you and how you treat yourself. So leaving the house, going out, making sure that you escape the darker sides of your mind every now and then.
Yeah.
Because when you just kind of hole yourself up in, your bedroom, your office, your, living room in front of the TV, it's not necessarily going to be healthy.
In my earlier 20s, I had a really hard time leaving the apartment. I had discovered video games, and my anxiety, depression, and agoraphobia had really kicked in. I didn't really have words for any of the things that I was experiencing. I wasn't going to therapy. I wasn't really able to go to school. I kept kind of trying to go to classes. But most of the time I spent indoors. And I think I've mentioned it before. It was like I'd watch about 2 to 3 movies a day. And then the rest of the time I'd fill in with video games or messaging my professors that I was sick and I couldn't come in, which I think after a while they just stopped really responding to. I slept poorly because I'd go to sleep around 7 in the morning after binging all night stuff. And so, the feelings of wanting to escape, it's so easy to do now that we have Netflix, Hulu, HBO, video games, every
YouTube,
free video games that get given to you. You got Xbox and Switch and just shit on your phone that you can enjoy, your PC, there's just constant stuff that can take you away from things that you actually do want to experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've talked about in the past self-care that can include having, a few hours of enjoyment of those things. But once you start hitting a point where you're not doing other stuff at all, even before that, it becomes hindrance to your growth as a human being.
Absolutely, yeah. I've also fallen in the trap of not wanting to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
My weekends, considering the majority of my week, I am out. I have to commute for my job. I have to, go and exist in the blazing hot sun of Southern California, which I already hate. So weather, and I can come up with a number of excuses, but none of them really are viable excuses in the long and the short of it. If anything, we as people who have depression, people who have anxiety, we will find any excuse to get out of it. To get out of going outside, to get out of going and spending time with other people. Because the alternative is maybe we'll have a bad time.
And the other thing is, I think something that I would always have excuses. Well, I don't like parties. I don't have money. I don't, and there's a bunch of reasons to not do things.
Sure.
So anyway, we're going to jump into small scale stuff when you leave the house for littler events, littler things, and then how to prepare for bigger things. So on the smaller scale, for me, what was something that was hard to do was to leave the house at all, to go to the gas station, to go to the grocery store. I really, really, really struggled with it. I still struggle with it a little bit sometimes. And something that helps me is audiobooks, because being able to have something to look forward to that I only do in the car helps motivate me to go out there and, get into the car. I talked to my therapist a lot about this, and she said sometimes I get dizzy because I get so much anxiety. So wearing sunglasses inside can help with the lights, because they can be really harsh in the grocery stores. Going with a friend can help, but it also will create sort of a need to constantly be with somebody when you go out, which was my first thing I used to do. So trying to go out alone, it's kind of like it's a different jump into the pool of doing stuff. So you can do it. I always give myself a little bit of time when I come back. When I get there, I find parking, which can be its own stressor, and then I sit in my car and I give myself 10, 15, 20 minutes just to sit in my car and listen to my audiobook or my music. I go in, I leave my sunglasses on. Sometimes I have my headphones on. And I also try to be, besides being thorough, I try to be pleasant to everybody around me. So if I have a moment to talk to somebody, I just try to think in my head, I always think that people don't like me. That's my first. I say, just smile at them. Maybe they're having a hard day. Maybe I can lighten their mood. And that doesn't have to be your mindset if you don't want to interact with people, but it can be helpful if you just think, well, maybe if I'm just, maybe they're having a hard time. I think putting it on them. Kind of the idea of seeing the audience in their underwear.
Yeah.
No, but on an emotional, vulnerable scale.
It's actually really funny you mentioned that. The other day, I went and got gas, and somebody pulled up like in the aisle right across from me. They had like this really kind of sour face on, and I was just like, oh man, they're having a rough day. But they were wearing a really cool shirt. Like it was just a button-down shirt, and it had like Dia de los Muertos like sugar skulls all over it. And I was just like, you know what?
Give a compliment.
I was just like, hey man, I like your shirt. It's a really cool shirt. And like the sour expression just kind of went away, and they were just like, oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I was just like, yeah, sweet shirt, man. It's like, sometimes you just gotta get out there and you take a step outside of your norm, and it'll change not only your day, because I felt great after that also, because it was just like, yeah.
You brighten someone's day.
I saw literally a 180 in facial expression.
And you know what? If you think about it for yourself, if a stranger comes up and compliments you on something you wear, you will think about that every time you look at that shirt. You're like, oh, you know what? Somebody actually, who I didn't know, who didn't have to compliment me, complimented me on this piece of clothing. I'm going to wear it again.
Yep.
Like, I actually do think of that. So I think that's a really good point, Chris, is complimenting people that you run into. Because suddenly you turn into this pleasant person that they're dealing with.
In a similar circumstance, when I go to a grocery store, for example, something that I like to do when I have the money to do it is I will get something that I have never in my life tried. I've never in my life either heard of it or seen it before. It's just one thing that is new to me, so that I can go to the grocery store and it's not a trudge. It's not like I'm sitting there going,
you're gonna have an adventure kind of.
Yeah,
like,
now it's something new. It's something maybe potentially good, maybe potentially bad. I've had some hits, I've had some misses where it's been like, oh, that was really good. I'm gonna get that forever now.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, that tasted like crap. Well, at least I know. So if you treat everyday kind of chores like that as opportunities for something pleasant, yeah, it doesn't have to be a chore.
It doesn't. We have these incredible opportunities to have interactions with people that, might change someone's life. You never know, help their mood even a little bit. We don't know what thread we are in the tapestry of life and time. So on a different, more social note, when you get invited to your friend's house or you go out to the movies, movies can be easier in terms of like you have a set time that you're done. What I struggled with is I've been invited to a friend's house. I'm lonely. I also don't want to leave the house. So the energy for me to leave, get ready, be stressed about how I look, get into the car, go to my friend's house, find parking, and then have to interact with humans for a few hours, and then not know when to leave, not know how to... So setting boundaries for yourself of like, I'm going to get ready and I'm going to say something pleasant to myself about how I look. Don't even fucking worry. I look fucking great. I look bitchin'. I don't give a shit if I'm in my pajamas. And then you go to their house, you listen to your audiobook, your music, whatever pumps you up. And then you get there. And then you just let yourself know, and them ahead of time, when you have to leave.
Yes.
And stick to it. Because if you have, let's say, a nighttime routine that you're starting or whatever, you need an out.
Yeah.
I find that people pleasing can sometimes be a problem for me. And I've heard that with other people. You want, like, someone's like, oh no, you should stay a little longer. And like part of you kind of does want to stay, but then you also know you've got X, Y, and Z to do and deal with. Just start to manage your time. Nobody fucking teaches you how to manage your goddamn time in your life.
Alternatively, if you are, say, the one having people come over to your place...
Oh, that's a good point.
This is also where a time limit will also come in handy.
Yes.
Because you can absolutely get burned out by having people in your space, in your face, all the time, and they want to stay longer, or they want to keep going. You have to be able to say to them, hey guys, I'm sorry, I gotta call it here, I gotta go to bed, I gotta do this shit in the morning. whatever it is.
I usually give somebody an hour. Like, let's say if some people are coming over and I need to be in bed by 10, I need to start cleaning up at like 9, I'll tell them an hour before I actually need them out to be gone. That way, if it takes them 20 minutes to leave, it's okay.
Exactly. Or if they want to help you clean, which honestly, if you're a good friend, you should probably do that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying. So, bigger things. I know a lot of people are like, I would never want to go to a festival. I have no interest in going to a concert, etc. But every once in a while, suddenly changes happen, and you get invited to go with a boyfriend or a group of friends that you love and adore, and you find that you're suddenly going to Wasteland Weekend in the desert in the Mojave.
I still recall, I think this was, God, I don't know how long ago this was, but I think you invited me to, what was it? There was some festival that you invited me to, and I was just like, nah.
I mean, I've gone to Coachella.
No.
Burning Man?
Burning Man. You invited me to
Man.
Burning Man, and I was just like, that sounds really fun. No.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I would never think of myself as a festival person because, as you guys know, I am an introvert and obviously had problems with leaving the house. But when I was about 18, 19, I got really stoked on Burning Man. This was many, 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 many years ago. So Burning Man was a little different than it is now. And it was mostly about the art and everything. And I was kept in a pretty strict household and I was pretty cut off. So going to some place where I was disconnected from my phone because at that time there was no cell service out there at all.
Yep.
And it was like a survivalist, artistic experience, and it was not like a pay-to-play. It was not a giant rave yet.
Yeah.
There were no large stage light beam shows.
Yeah, it was just a place where people went and experienced the
and
art of it and got naked.
And it was really cool because as women, I think we often have a lot of insecurity about our bodies, starting with our mothers telling us that we have problems with our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so going there and seeing like all ages, all body types, all races, ethnicities, all kinds of flab, not flab, beautiful, what you wouldn't consider beautiful. And what ends up being beautiful to me in those kinds of scenarios was just the lack of giving a shit. I mean, you can have stretch marks and cellulite and be like, you know what, this isn't a beautiful part of my body, but it's part of my body and I'm going to own it and it doesn't matter, and that's beautiful.
Damn right.
That confidence and then everyone's covered in dust too, which makes everybody hot because you're just like covered in this fine layer of dust and you look like some beautiful,
Mad Max hotness.
Fairy creature from the desert.
Sure.
So it's, it was like letting go of all these social norms that you don't even realize you're surrounded by. There's no commercials, there's no TV out there. And it kind of changed my brain. It was very interesting, difficult to explain. But when you're somewhere where your culture completely changes, and there's no commercialization, you start to feel and think differently about a lot of stuff. And so that was my opening into, hey, these are really cool things, and figuring out how to do introvert moments when you are in an extroverted situation.
Yes. It is incredibly daunting. For me at least. I am a planner.
Yes.
I am somebody who, if we have got, a big event that we're going to, a concert or, a live performance, something, and we have to travel a certain distance, I am looking up every single detail of this travel plan. Where are we going to park? How are we going to get there? What should we bring? Blah, blah, blah. And so for me, it makes me incredibly anxious whenever I have to get anywhere near anything even remotely like this, which can be good to a degree because it challenges my brain and it makes me think outside of the normal dark thoughts that kind of cloud my everyday judgment, and more into a state of I'm going to have a good time, but I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to have a good time.
I mean, a big thing of this is going with good people who plan with you.
Yes. And that could be a thing, even if you're not going with people that you know. If you're going just for yourself, which some people can do.
I do, sometimes, yeah.
Exactly. What do you do when you know that you're going by yourself?
Well, you mean when you go, because I traveled there by myself as a single person, but I knew that some of my friends were going to be at events, and so they were also prepping, so I would go and prep with them at their home before anybody took off or anything. Okay. So, example, Is that what you're talking about? Or
I'm
are you
talking about
totally alone?
I'm talking
completely?
about both, actually. But have you ever done something completely and totally alone?
Like a big festival thing?
Either a big festival or just even like going to a concert, just a regular concert.
No, I don't think I have.
I have. I have stood up and just gone like, yep, I'm going to go to this movie by myself, or I'm going to go to this reading of a graphic novel by myself, and I'm just going to go. I'm just going to do it, and it has with it a certain je ne sais quoi of you're completely isolated but surrounded by hundreds of people. It's kind of interesting, but it's one of the things that I also just kind of like doing, because sometimes I don't want to have to deal with other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to experience the thing by myself, and that's okay too. If it's something that only I will experience, then so be it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is something that keeps people from getting out of the house as well, is that
the fear of being seen by yourself.
Yeah.
It's super... I've done, little things alone,
Sure.
and it can be incredibly relieving.
Mm-hmm.
I did go to Burning Man one year with a partner and a couple friends, and it was awful in terms of every time I was with them, because their how they experienced the art was to, okay, I see it, let's keep going. And I see something and I want to talk about it and like get pumped about it and be with that person and really get into it. So being like, you know what, I'm going to take the pressure off of it. I'm just going to go alone and ride around all night in the desert by myself on a bike was great. I ended up being on a big swing set, swinging and looking out over the desert by myself and watching art cars and naked people go by. It was beautiful.
That sounds great.
It was great. I think this can sound like going to anything enormous can sound overwhelming and difficult, but if you break it down into smaller bits, it's far easier. So helping, wow. What helps me is making a list and then breaking down that list. So just, food, what am I bringing? And you write it out. Watching YouTube videos of people who have gone prior to you, so you feel really well informed and get different points of view on it, things to kind of prep. I feel most confident when I am, like you said, prepped. I know not all personalities are like that. Maybe you're the personality type that wants to just go and experience something.
Sure.
You will feel better, though, if you do prep a little bit, because you might forget something if you just want to go and experience it that you would have found out if you had just looked up. But almost all these things have a basic survival list, things you have to bring.
Speaking of surviving, there is a certain thing that we have to combat in order to kind of survive any of these experiences.
Yes.
And that is the voice that tells you no.
Yes.
The voice that tells you, don't go out, be comfy, stay where you are, the outside world is scary, whatever is out there, it's not worth it.
This is true. I experience it even when I go to these events.
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely. There have been plenty of things where I've gone to and just been like, well, this was a mistake.
Yeah. Or I go to an event and I'm like, I don't want to leave my campsite. It's too hot, or it's too, like, I don't really need to see what's over in that. I don't need to watch that really cool burlesque show. Idiot. But the voice, yeah. Go ahead and talk on the voice, Chris.
So the voice that tells you no, tells you it's not worth it. For me, there's only been really one thing that has helped me combat it. And it's funny, I've heard a few people tell me different names for this, but I personally refer to it as the Fuck It Initiative.
Fuck It Initiative.
Yes.
Trademarked by Chris Rockover.
It is the point in which you have made up excuses for yourself. You have gone over and over again with everything that can or will go wrong, or everything that's keeping you where you are. And eventually you just say, fuck it, let's do it anyway. Or, fuck it, let's try something else. Or, fuck it, I'm worth it.
Have you ever just gotten swept up in something and you're having a great time and you realize, wow, I had this great time and I didn't have like a bad thought. I was so busy. Then you realize sometimes thinking is the devil. Because when you start thinking and you analyze and you start tearing yourself down and you get caught in these brain patterns of yours, the little bastard voice will be like, you can't do it, or you're going to have a horrible time, or it's too expensive. That's why I'm rich.
When you hit those points, the fuck it initiative will save your life.
Yeah, and you know, experiencing something, whether you end up having a positive or negative experience, I think it's worth it because you meet somebody cool, or you see something you would never have seen in another time, or you connect with loved ones, or, you know, even if you have to use the fucking initiative to go to the gas station and get, like, you fucking did it.
Yeah.
So at the end of all of it, you've got to give yourself credit for fucking doing it.
Absolutely. All in all, whatever it is that keeps you in the house, whether it is fear, anger, annoyance, you could just be annoyed at the outside world and you just want to escape it.
Yeah.
But you still want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Which is always fun when you've got two diametrically opposed attitudes going at the same time. You gotta experience life with its ups, its downs, its sideways, its slantways, frontways, and backways.
And I think a few real quick tips to be able to do anything is having a good support system that you can voice your concerns with. If you're going with people or whatever, you don't have to tell everybody in the group, I'm worried. You can just talk to a couple people that you know will support you, and they're like, okay, you're worried? Like, let's prep you so you feel the most confident you can be. And that's what helped me, for example, to go to Wasteland and Burning Man. I had people who were like, we will help you every step of the way, get ready.
Yeah.
Giving yourself time limits, like we said, making sure you know when you're going to go to someplace and when you can leave.
Yes.
And letting people know. And then also giving yourself recoup time.
Oh, yeah. I am incredibly guilty of never giving myself the recoup time that I need. So I get to have little, I've been going for 2 weeks straight and I haven't had a break yet. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, I'm fine. How are you doing?
Time management, emotional energy management. You got to do it.
It's important, guys, that you understand what your limits are. You can challenge them, of course. Never hurts to challenge your limits. But if you find yourself at a breaking point, don't challenge that.
Yeah.
Just understand it.
And remember that change is going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Going to a big event, going to start doing things out of your normal pattern, it's not going to be comfortable right away. And there will be moments within those events or, times out where you're just like, why the fuck did I do this? Why am I doing this? I wish I were at home. And that's okay. That's part of life. That's okay. It's okay. Nothing's going to be 100% perfect. You
could literally run out, get gas, run back home. And just be like, I did it. Okay, I don't have to do anything more today.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just in that place. Yeah, that's okay.
We hope this was helpful in some way. Letting yourself go and having a good time. Let your hair down. Especially in times of tragedy, I think it's also good to live life fully and giving of light and goodness to everyone around us.
Yes, absolutely. So that should be it for this week.
Yeah.
As for us, follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast, like our Facebook page, subscribe to the subreddit, and if you want to support us directly, please visit our Patreon. Or if you want us to, or do you want to send us something directly, go ahead and email mailbag@howareyouholdingup.com.
Thanks again for listening, guys. And as always,
don't tell us to just get over it.